Hello and welcome to the Colossians 2:7 Podcast in English. Du hörst gerade eine monatliche Folge für unsere Freunde in den Staaten. While our regular listeners are primarily German, we are delighted to have a growing number of listeners from the States as well. Odds are you know us personally, and I want to thank you for tuning in. In this special episode, we invite you, dear friend, to join Willi and me as we engage in thoughtful conversation about life and ministry within the German context.
This chair is going to be really loud. I just can't move.
Can't wiggle back and forth.
Wake up the listeners at one point.
In the German one, I have a lot more of an intro. In the American one, it's more of a cold open. The question is then how you start a cold open, which is always interesting. And then sometimes Willie is like guessing, is a cold open going on right now?
I can't remember how I did any cold opens on my podcast.
Yeah?
I don't think we ever did.
No?
I think it was always structured. Hello and welcome to...
Yeah. Well, people have said that our podcast is either easy to listen to because the content itself is light and breezy with a whole bunch of nonsense in the first 10 minutes or so. But then there's some good, valuable aspects towards the end. But you had a podcast in the States?
Yep. We might start it back up. But who knows? It is interesting to think that the amount of people who think that people actually listen to them. That was my roommate and I. Mm-hmm. We made a bunch of episodes, and I think we had like a total of 4 listeners, and that was
you and
me, him, my wife,
your
and
mom,
his grandma. That was all who listened to us, and maybe some people would listen to some of it. I think we looked at. Once you get a certain amount of episodes, you can look to you get more statistics, and it was like people made it through like the first 5 minutes of it, and then shut it off.
Those statistics are always very sobering to see. Like no one's actually listening beyond 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I had a really good application 15 minutes in, and somebody stopped listening at 14. Darn it.
Well, at our peak popularity, we would have about 50 people listening per episode, and we were at one point ranked 32 in the country in the spiritual division.
Wow.
I think just like 2 spots below Ask Pastor John podcast.
Oh, Ask Pastor John, that's the Catholic one, right?
Nope, that's the John Piper one.
Oh. Because there's one, so I guess they wouldn't call him pastor. They wouldn't call Catholic priests pastors. It's surprising how many fathers have podcasts.
How have you been enjoying the German coffee?
This is about the same as what I make at home.
Really?
Because I use Dalmaya beans. And so...
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh. Where do you find those?
I can get them somewhat fresh at World Market in Des Moines.
Dalmaya is one of my favorite coffee brands.
Yes. It's also, I'm pretty sure, one of your mother's favorite coffee brands as well.
Is that why it's your favorite now, too?
Maybe. But she always says if I ever got extra that she could have some. I never get extra.
Well, we do have a coffee roast place here in Eichstätt, and at least Willie's dad always requests about a pound or so, and then to give a pound or so to friends and family. So that's his favorite blend. My grandpa, he appreciated German coffee because then he wouldn't have to use as much because it was strong. So he could use just a little bit and have the same watered down coffee as before.
Yeah. One thing I have appreciated about the coffee culture here is that I can drink it all the time.
Yes.
And nobody looks at me funny. In the States, if I drink coffee all throughout the day, I'm the weird one.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
It's just a lot of people, at least in Iowa, or where I grew up, they had their coffee in the morning and maybe a cup throughout the day. But that was it. And since being here for 2 weeks, I have probably consumed 5, 6, 7 cups a day. And probably a lot of that's due to the fact I'm only here for 2 weeks, and I'm just really jet lagged. But it's also, I just enjoy drinking coffee, especially like cappuccinos.
Well, on a little known fact about Germany is that Germany is known, of course, for its beer culture, but the coffee culture is just as high. So they drink a boatload of coffee throughout the day. You've been here for 2 weeks now. What's your impression been? Or do you want to back up and explain how you got here in the first place?
I could back up and explain how we got here. Like physically,
I'm guessing it was not with a boat or a train.
it was not with a boat or train.
Have
Although I
you
would've-
taken a train yet? Here.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
That was the first thing we did, actually, after picking up our bags, was we took the Deutsche Bahn from Munich to Landshut. Then we sat around and did nothing there. Because for some reason, we thought it would be better to do nothing in Landshut than it would be to do nothing in Munich. Yeah, that wasn't my very first train. We took trains 2 years ago. But physically, getting here 2 weeks ago, we were driven to the airport in Des Moines on Friday, the 16th. And we get into our plane. Everything's going great. We're super excited. We're excited to have to run through the Chicago airport.
That's always fun.
Because we only have a 45-minute layover.
Why do you do that?
I'm not allowed to say his name.
Was that actually planned to have a 45-minute layover?
That was planned by an individual. I'm not going to say the organization or name.
I don't do anything under 2 hours.
It's probably my fault because my wife wanted to leave in the afternoon so she could work that morning. That way, she could work like an extra hour every day on Monday through Thursday. That way, she could take off 4 hours earlier on Friday.
Yeah.
And so the plan was that we just wanted to leave in the afternoon. And of course, the flights leaving for Germany from Chicago are around 5 or 6 o'clock. All of them. So it's just, that's how it worked out. And so we get on our plane in Des Moines, and we get situated. We're all the way in the back against the wall, in the corner seats too, so we're smushed in. And the captain comes over the intercom and says, "We're having maintenance troubles. We can't close a door. It's going to be about half an hour."
Oh.
And it's like, okay, well, then we'll leave about 15 minutes late, and we should be able to make up some time in the air. And half an hour goes by, and captain comes on and says, "We're going to ask everybody to leave the plane. It is right now unfixable, and so until we fix it, we're just going to have you get off the plane because it's getting too hot in here and we don't have enough waters." And so everybody starts getting off the plane, and we're all the way in the back, so of course we're the last ones to get off the plane. We make it almost to the front of the plane, and the flight attendants say, "Okay, turn around, go back. They got it fixed." And so we got back to our seats, and I checked my app for my airline, and they actually delayed our Chicago flight too, because there was a lot of people that there were a lot of people on the Des Moines flight that needed to make that connection. And so they ended up just delaying a bunch of planes in Chicago because, like, some people were going to Amsterdam, some people were going to Vancouver, and little did I know Vancouver's in Canada.
Did you not know that?
I not in the moment. In the moment, I thought, oh, that sounds like a nice place. And so the person next to me is like, oh, yeah, we have a connection going to Vancouver. And I was like, maybe we'll just go to Vancouver with you. And after later that night, I was like, I do not want to go to Vancouver.
You know, there's in Vienna, there is a desk at the airport just for people who went to Vienna, Austria, thinking it was Australia.
Mm.
So people apparently do get stuff mixed up sometimes.
Yeah. Speaking of that, that's actually one of my favorite jokes. This Austrian man comes over to the States and he's talking to somebody, and oh, I'm from Austria, he says. And his friend replies, oh, good day, mate. One of my favorite jokes. Anyway, so we thought, okay, maybe we can make it. And we land, and as we land, we see literally our plane backing out of the terminal.
Oh.
And so we missed it. Mm-hmm. Luckily, our airline was very kind, and they paid for a hotel for our connecting flight the next morning, paid for a meal, paid for like transportation, a ride share, Lyft, Uber, I can't remember now. Anyway, so then our flight the next morning left at 5 a.m. from Chicago to go to Denver.
Uh-huh.
We arrived in Denver at about 6:45 Denver time. And then we had to sit in the airport until 4 o'clock.
In the afternoon?
Yes. To
Nice.
catch another flight to Munich. Because the Munich flight in Chicago on the 17th was full. Same with Frankfurt. So we left at like 2 a.m. from the hotel in Chicago. Got there. It was early. Everybody was tired. Everybody wanted to get through security. And TSA wasn't open yet. They don't open until 4:30.
For a 5 o'clock flight.
For 5 o'clock flights, yes. So the guy was very nice. He was... the only thing I remember him saying is, being upset means that you're ugly, and don't be ugly. Be beautiful. That's the only thing I remember him saying. Mainly because it was 4 in the morning. So we got through security, got on our plane, got to Denver, waited around all day. But it was about 10 a.m. I checked my phone to look for like my boarding passes. And I could find mine, but I couldn't find my wife's. And so I called Lufthansa. I say, I can't find we're flying to Munich from Denver with Lufthansa, and I can't find my wife's boarding pass. I'm sorry, we have no record of her. You're going to have to call United because United rebooked us.
It's Star Alliance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Star Alliance is a pain because if a flight gets canceled, you bought the ticket with United, but you're flying with Lufthansa. So if Lufthansa cancels your flight, Lufthansa's going, well, you didn't book with us, you booked with United. And United goes, well, you're not flying with us, you're flying with Lufthansa.
Yep.
So they keep on shifting the blame back and forth.
Yep. So then I called United, and I spent 2 hours on and off the phone with a United agent to figure out where my wife's ticket is. At the end of the 2 hours, they come back and say, we have a confirmation code for you. I said, okay, give it to me. So they give it to me, and I put it into the Lufthansa app. I'm sorry, we can't find that. And I looked. It's the same exact confirmation code as our flight from Chicago to Munich.
Oh,
And so apparently they rebooked me, but they didn't book Megan. And so she's like, I'm sorry, let me get my manager. Let's get somebody on the line with Lufthansa. We'll figure something out. And so it was about another hour. And they say, okay, we got it figured out. Just need to take your passports when Lufthansa gets to the terminal. Finally got the Lufthansa people there. We went up to the desk, gave them my passport. They got my boarding pass. Gave them Megan's passport. We don't have any record of her being on this plane. I'm like, are you kidding me? I spent 3 hours on the phone with people today. And they said they got it resolved. Okay, let me make a call. So they called, the Lufthansa called United. They got it all figured out. It was a full flight, 560 people on this bus. And they got it to where it was my seat, somebody, her seat. Somehow. I don't know how it worked out that way. My wife's stressed out. I'm stressed out. We get into our lines. We're in different boarding groups. We get on the plane, and we're waiting for the person next to me to come in so that I can ask them, like, hey, could you switch with my wife for this 10-hour flight? Mm-hmm. And I was going to use the excuse, like, I was going to sleep, and so if you don't want me sleeping on your shoulder, I'd suggest you switch. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, she was a young lady. Apparently, she's actually grew up somewhere in Europe. Mm-hmm. And so she, I don't know if she was just going home for the summer from school or what. Mm-hmm. But she's like, oh, yeah, I grew up on these international flights, so I understand. Yeah. And Megan was in an aisle seat anyway. Mm-hmm. So she's, oh, an aisle for an aisle? Yeah, that's fine. So she switched, and I proceeded to sleep on my wife's shoulder. We finally arrived in Munich, and I look back on the whole situation, and I think, how silly am I that I thought I could control everything. Mm-hmm. It really, like, right away, God was working on that trip with, guess what? You actually have no control over anything. Mm-hmm. And it was humbling. But I'm also thankful for how the Lord worked with that. Mm-hmm. It revealed sin in my life. Mm-hmm. The sin of not trusting in God. Mm-hmm. And very thankful for how He worked through that. And then after we got on the ground in Munich, we started walking the way I thought towards customs and baggage claim. Uh-huh. It was completely opposite way. We walked for like 5 minutes. So we had to turn around, go the complete opposite way. I was like, maybe we should have followed all those people that we got off the plane with.
And follow the signs for luggage.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, we didn't actually see the signs. Because the way we walked in, the sign was like right above our head, and so we didn't see it when we walked in. Although you think because we're so short you could see things, but I finally got to got to customs, and actually no, we walked into like the main the mall area in Munich, and there's a long line, and we thought, oh, this must be the line. This is a bunch of people that we've seen on our flight to Munich. Mm-hmm. This must be baggage claim.
Did you do the rookie mistake of waiting in line to see what it is?
We waited for about 10 minutes. The line didn't go anywhere. Uh-huh. So we waited 10 minutes, and then Megan was like, I'm going to go walk up and see you. I was like, no, you stay in line. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go walk up and see you. I walk up. Turns out the line was waiting to get into terminals G, H, and J. Uh-huh. And baggage claim was wide open. Mm-hmm. So we got all the way down to the basement, although it seemed like the basement. Got to customs. Customs was fine. They had like 7 people working. Although I was hoping I'd get a specific customs agent, and I got the one I didn't want. He looked mean, and so he sounded mean. And so that also gave me a chance to show a little bit of patience and be kind with him.
With those TSA agents, sometimes you just have to, like, if you say, oh, I'm here on a missions trip, that just raises red flags. Yeah. So you say, visiting friends, old college friends, and then that's usually okay. So you've been here for 2 weeks, you're leaving tomorrow.
Yep.
What's some things that were different this time than last time?
We didn't travel as much. Mm-hmm. And that was intentional. Yeah. When we made the plan, I wanted to spend all of my time here in Eichstätt. Mm-hmm. But it couldn't happen that way. I wanted to do very little travel because I wanted to see if it's the traveling that we miss or if it's actually the people. Mm-hmm. So that was one difference, is that instead of going all the way from Ingelheim all the way over here, now we did have that one day we went down to
Bad Heilbrunn.
I'm not even going to try to say that. I have tried to say it, and people can understand where I was at, but because it's recorded, I'm not going to try it. So we did have that day where we drove a couple hours, but yeah, we didn't travel as much. There weren't as many things planned.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of, okay, today we're going to be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Or today, my ministry looks like this. So it was less structure. Really to see the everyday grind
Mm-hmm.
of I guess while we were in Eichstätt, a tent-making
Mm-hmm.
ministry. And then when we were in Neumarkt, a fully supported ministry.
Yeah.
So it was a little different in that aspect as well.
And that was the intention too, that you see the quote unquote lull of just normal everyday stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not every ministry is full with teams from the States coming and it being exciting the whole time. You also have just the normal everyday, as you said, the everyday grind.
Yeah. And that's one thing I've really appreciated being here. I wanted to avoid the vacation feel.
Mm-hmm.
I called a friend back in the States the other night, and he ended the phone call with, "Enjoy the rest of your vacation." And it's like, I'm not really vacationing.
Mm-hmm.
If I was vacationing, I'd actually be traveling, seeing things. Which, some days feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, we traveled to Ingolstadt and saw the Audi Museum, and
Oh yeah?
saw downtown Ingolstadt, did some shopping at Teddy, of all places.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we shopped at the Audi gift store too. But I wanted to avoid that vacation feeling. And when I pitched this this first look trip with, or to my wife and to our church, even to our agency, maybe even to the Snells, I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But when I pitched it, I was very clear on I do not want to make this a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been somewhat successful in keeping it not a vacation. Sometimes, like yesterday, it feels similar to a vacation.
Mm-hmm. And for some people, Eichstätt, this town, is a vacation destination. In the summer, there's a lot of whiteheads walking around and riding their electric bicycles around. So this is a beautiful area, and people do come here to go on vacation.
Yeah. So those are just a couple of different things, and I'm not saying 2 years ago when we were here with the choir that it was a vacation, because it wasn't. Now, does this trip kind of show us that we do want to do some vacationing here? Yes. But that was the main goal of this trip. And I think that overall, I would say my wife and I would say that we've accomplished that. That it has been, we're seeing, like the funeral on Wednesday. I wouldn't go to a funeral of somebody that I don't know, a family member of somebody I don't know. Like maybe if it was like, I know the son and that their dad died, I'd go to the funeral. But I didn't know the person that passed away, didn't know the family at all. I'm not that religion, but I still went because that was ministry. I wouldn't have done that on a vacation.
Yeah.
And if you do that on vacation, kudos to you. That's not me. But that's kind of been the differences.
What were some things you were surprised about, or that you really did not realize when you were here last time? Where you thought, oh, that's a new impression of the churches here that you didn't quite realize when you were traveling with the choir? Because, I've had the choir boys on here once before, and I think maybe someone else. So their impression of Germany was based on the choir trip. But I never had someone on the podcast who was in the choir, but then also came independently from that.
I would say some things that I've noticed that are different is the amount of activities that you do as a church.
Yeah.
With my church back in the States, we have Sunday morning, Sunday evening. We have Wednesday night. I think once or twice a month we have like a men's prayer breakfast and a women's Bible study.
Yeah.
And that's really the extent of it, at least that I've realized. Maybe there's more going on. But the fact that Sunday you're in church, Wednesday night you have Bible study. And then you had the youth group and men's group on Friday.
Mm-hmm. And then today there's people painting and doing construction in the new building.
Yep. And when we were back in Neumarkt, they had like a ladies' prayer group.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot more activities throughout the week. And the fact that even though there's a lot of activities, everybody shows up and they stay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I mentioned this earlier, if you meet at 7 o'clock, as soon as 8 o'clock hits on a Wednesday night, oh, okay, church time's over.
Mm-hmm.
Time to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've fallen victim of that, or not victim, I'm guilty of that sometimes, where I do actually have something going on right after.
Mm-hmm.
But that is one thing that we've noticed is just different, is that people, when they come to church, they don't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is their family. Oftentimes here, you have people that, when they get saved, when they realize that whatever they have been doing was wrong,
mm-hmm.
and if they leave, for instance, the Catholic Church, their life is gone.
Yeah.
Their family's gone. Income sometimes is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Savings sometimes is gone. Everything is gone. And so they did that, and so this is the only, for some, this is the only family that they have.
Yes.
And so it is, when they come together for family gatherings, mm-hmm. nobody wants to leave. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I've noticed that is different. I noticed it a little bit 2 years ago, but from that view,
mm-hmm.
it feels like they're only there because they're only staying late because the choir is there and everybody's talking to
mm-hmm.
the choir.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, oh, it's an hour and a half after church and half the congregation's still here
mm-hmm.
fellowshipping.
Mm-hmm.
That's different. You don't see that all the time.
Yeah.
And even like last night, men's group got done at 9:30 or 9:15.
Oh, that was early.
Yeah, it got done at 9:30, which for me, I'm a in bed by 10 kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Got done at 9:30, and yet everybody was still standing around talking afterwards.
And they went out for ice cream.
They went out for ice cream.
About a handful went out for ice cream at McDonald's afterwards.
Wow.
In part because youth group was the same night, and the youth were still meeting, so they had to, spend some time.
Yeah.
So after spending 3 hours in the men's evening, they spent, an hour or so at McDonald's.
Yeah.
And today, we're all going to be at the new church building. Yes, doing construction, but also just spending time with each other.
Right.
So it's something that's very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I've really grown to appreciate. That's probably been the biggest thing that I've realized is different.
And it's something that I think in part is unique to our fellowship of churches here in Bavaria. But I think even amongst those churches, unique for our church here. That's one reason why some people that attend our church come from further away, because they want to be at this church. They want to be with our congregation, our church family. And concerning the new church plant, because of that family atmosphere, it's hard to... I realize I'm leaving behind church family here to start a new church family somewhere else. And so that's going to be something that's going to be hard for me. But Daniel, he said he wants to leave. I said, why do you want to leave? Because that church family atmosphere that he experiences at our church in Eichstätt, he has never seen anywhere else. And he wants to not keep that for himself, but share it with others. And so that's his motivation for joining the church plant, is because he wants to spread that family atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
How was there was also like a bus ministry you were part of on Tuesday in Neumarkt. The Life is More, Leben ist mehr bus.
Yes. On the side of the bus it was do not fear, only believe.
Mm-hmm.
In like 7 different languages. Almost everybody stopped and looked at the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's like, why is there a giant bus in the middle of a city square? Even, I actually realized this afterwards, we were in the shadow of the Catholic Church right there in Neumarkt.
Oh, yeah?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
literally in the shadow of the Catholic Church. So it's like, oh, we're doing things in the shadows here. But we weren't allowed to hand out in Neumarkt. You're not allowed to hand out things, and so I had to. Or actually, you are allowed to hand out things in the form of coupons.
Yeah.
And it has to be done by someone who is mute. And
you were that mute guy, huh?
I was that mute guy. I walked into the bus, and Mark said, "Knowing you, I have the perfect job for you. I'm going to give you the job where you're not allowed to speak." And as we walked up to the bus, Mark's like, "Be prepared to go out of your comfort zone." And I thought, great, I'm going to have to talk to German people that they don't understand me. I don't understand them. This is going to be out of my comfort zone. But I know I'll be able to do it. Because I know the Word of God never returns void. So I know I'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
And then Mark's like, "You're not allowed to talk to anybody. You just have to hand out things." And I'm like, I can't do that. I am too much of a talker. But we got through it. A couple people, we made a pretty good team. One person would stand kind of behind me a little bit, and as I handed the coupon out for either a free coffee or a free book, they would step in and answer questions for them because I wasn't allowed to say anything. I couldn't also understand a word they were saying. This little old lady, bless her heart, she walked up, she took a coupon, and she started speaking in German, and I was like, "Boss." But then somebody walked up and took her and started talking to her, got her a coffee, and had a pretty decent conversation with them, with her. There was this one young man that he knew I was American, so he started speaking English to me, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm actually not allowed to say anything. You'll just have to go over there."
You looked American, huh?
Yeah. I even took the hat off because I was wearing the hat, and I asked Mark, "Should I take it off? Should I leave it on?" He said, "Well, if you leave it on, you'll look American." And so I took it off.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe I could fit in if I work on my hello. Maybe I could fit in. And I didn't, apparently. This guy came up to me. He was probably about my age. Started talking to me in English. And "I'm sorry, I can't say anything. You'll just have to go over there." And then somebody actually walked up, and they were actually able to share the gospel with him. So that was really... It was encouraging to see that even though I couldn't actually do anything, I was just handing out a coupon that really didn't matter. Because anybody could walk up and ask for free coffee if they had a conversation. But it was cool to see that I handed a coupon. I pointed to a bus. Couldn't say a word, and yet that person was reached with the gospel. That was encouraging to me that no matter how God uses you, He still uses you. There's another couple that took a coupon. I think they were Muslim.
Oh, okay.
They took a coupon and they got to sit down and have a conversation. They received a Bible, a New Testament, and a couple tracts, and they actually sat for a while and had a conversation. I actually saw them talking to when the gentleman got up to grab some stuff from the bus. They actually sat there and they were talking about they were looking through, and they were talking about it. I had no idea what they were saying. They were talking about something. So that was encouraging to see that, oh, okay, I gave that coupon. They're the ones that took it up there, and now they get to hear the gospel. And so that was encouraging to see. And like I said, that even if it feels like God isn't using you, He probably is. It's just in a different way than everybody else.
Yeah.
It may not be on it might not be on the front lines where you are sharing the gospel with everybody, but it could be in some supporting way like that. And that was really encouraging to me.
I've never been part of that Life is More bus, but I've asked the pastor in Nuremberg about it, and he said, "Well, it's a big bus. They go to pedestrian zones. They set up tables, and you can have and chairs. They offer water and conversations." And so it's something that is good for pedestrian zones in larger cities where people are just always out and about. It's something you can't really do here in Eichstätt. But I do find it interesting that, especially in the States, people have they might. People have said in the States that we don't do evangelism good enough over here in Germany. And my counter is always, it's always personal evangelism. Like, we might not have an evangelistic program per se like you're used to, but we're inviting our coworkers over for lunch. What are you doing this weekend? Mm-hmm. and even there you have this evangelistic event with this Life is More bus, which you needed to have certification for and approval by the city to be there. Mm-hmm. But even then, you are restricted by just being able to have conversations in that one area of the pedestrian zone.
Yeah.
And you not allowed to talk about your faith, but simply hand out coupons for the bus event. Mm-hmm. And so evangelism here is quite different than in the States.
Well, yeah, I was telling Mark about it. That I could, if I was in Des Moines, Iowa, doing the same thing, I'd be up in people's faces. Anybody that walked by, I'd be saying, "Take a coupon, take a coupon, take a coupon." I'd be literally up in everybody's face, and that's just the type of guy that I am.
Yeah.
I may seem like I'm reserved, but when I'm on a mission, I get the mission done, and I'm really good at making other people feel uncomfortable.
Oh, nice.
And that's what I like to use.
Is that your God-given talent?
I think so. And so I would make people, I'm not saying I've ever done it, but if I was in Des Moines doing it, I would be up in people's faces, saying, "Take this coupon. Go hear the gospel, dummy." I couldn't do that in Nuremberg or in Neumarkt. Mm-hmm. If somebody looked at me and they immediately looked away, I had to let that person go. Mm-hmm. And I have to realize that in that moment, God didn't prepare their heart.
Yeah.
And if they looked at me and I gave them... Mark says that Americans are really good at looking at people and giving a big old smile. Mm-hmm. If I looked at somebody and smiled at them and they smiled back, I would say, "Hello," and hand out a coupon. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they would say, "No," and just keep walking. Sometimes they just keep walking.
Yeah, yeah.
And other times they'd actually take it and they'd look at it and maybe go get a coffee or a book. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there is that difference too. Like here, there are more, at least in that type of evangelistic ministry, there are more barriers. Mm-hmm. Like if that bus was in Des Moines, the coupons would be gone because everybody would be in everybody's faces handing it out. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then people would be, because also like with the people just standing around to have conversations, if somebody was walking by, you couldn't say, "Hey, would you like a coffee?" Mm-hmm. You couldn't do anything like that because that's harassment. Mm-hmm. They had to wait for somebody to walk up and look and say, "How are you today? Mm-hmm. Would you like a coffee?" They had to, the customer, quote unquote, had to initiate. Uh-huh. That wouldn't happen in Des Moines. Mm-hmm. In Des Moines, we'd be yelling at people, "Come get a coffee," so that I could tell you about Jesus. Uh-huh. We wouldn't say that, but we'd be bringing more. It brings more people in because there's less restrictions, and I think that is partially due to the openness of like the freedom of expression in the United States, where it doesn't. There we don't have, and I'm not saying it's like that here, but we don't have like a set religion for our country, and anything is accepted as long as it's your truth. That blasphemous phrase. So that is the scene in I know for sure in Iowa. Who knows how it is in California or
New York.
God forbid New York.
So you not only have the restrictions of what you're allowed to say, but then you have the the barriers of the German mindset of minding their own business and not really wanting to engage in conversation. And then on top of that, we used to have a book table. Right now, it's a Saturday morning, and right now there's like a farmer's market down by the well or the fountain. And we used to have a book table there, and other churches used to have that too. But then you have a few book tables lined up. You have yourself, then you have Jehovah's Witnesses, then you have Greenpeace, and then you have something else. And so for visual and for association, I don't think that looks good. to be seen as just one of the of the advocates there at the marketplace.
Come join my cult. And it's kind of similar, like with the Iowa State Fair ministry. I don't know if that was around when you were in the States, but people come up and it's the Answers in Genesis booth. We hand out $1 million bills that have the $1 million question. Where will you go when you die? And I think it is a good seed planting ministry. I think that's the goal, is that we want to hand out as many $1 million question tracts, so that, because who knows? Well, I guess with the state fair, you walk. One of the very first things that you do when you walk into the Varied Industries building, is you find a booth that hands out free bags. You always look for the biggest bag, and as soon as you have that, you then go down the aisles and you take every single free thing possible. It's just what you do in the Varied Industries building.
Especially those huge rulers, because then you can fight with them.
Yep, that's right. And so you do that. Mine was always full of, like,
the candies?
No, Iowa State University and University of Iowa football posters. I knew, like, college football season starting when I went to the Iowa State Fair. Anyway, so that's what you do. You just take every free thing that you see walking down the aisles. And if one of those free things is $1 million question tract, great. Because what you're going to do, most likely when you go home, is go through your bag of free things. And, somebody might look at it, $1 million question. Might read what the $1 million question, where will you go when you die? Toss it to the side. Some people may do that. But at that point, that individual has had a chance. They saw the $1 million question. And at least thought about it for a second. And that is a good seed planting ministry. I've never, once. One time, somebody came in, they took it, they said, I've walked by this booth for the last few days. Where will I go when I die? It's something that I've been thinking about. So they sat down and I was able to walk them through the gospel. Not only you need to go to heaven because you don't want to go to hell, but why do you need to go to heaven? And at that time, I didn't know anything better, and so I walked him through a prayer. Even though I said it's not you say these exact words and you're saved. It's a heart decision. And that person prayed. They said that they admitted they were a sinner. They believed that Christ died for them, and they confessed their sins to God. And after he was done, he said, so what's next? And it's like, I don't know. I was only taught to tell the gospel here. I wasn't taught what to do next. And so we had to get him set up with somebody else. But I hope that individual's still going to church today. I hope he's still living his a godly life. But I don't... There is a network of churches with that booth. But I don't necessarily see it as more than a seed planting ministry. I don't see it as a... Yes, every evangelistic ministry is a soul-winning ministry. But some more than others.
And, I mean, in 1 Corinthians 3, is Paul saying, well, I planted, and Apollos he watered, but God gives the growth. And so in many evangelistic ministries, you don't know if you're the one planting the seed, watering the seed, or harvesting the fruit.
That's right.
And so here you're using opportunities and relationships and cherishing those relationships to have more and more opportunities to either planting seeds, watering seeds, or if the Lord wills, then also harvesting the fruit. But you don't know which part of that process you are. So you're trying to just be faithful in where you're at with the people you're at.
That's right.
Is there one last thing you wish people in the States knew about ministry here?
The intentionality that is required here. It's not, I'm going to sit back and wait for somebody to, quote unquote, fall into my lap. for me to witness to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may work for relationships sometimes, where you'll just wait around and all of a sudden somebody will finally pop up. Maybe literally fall into your lap, who knows. But it is intentional here. And I would say the way the world is turning, everywhere is going to be intentional. That it's not just... In America, there's a plethora of Christians. They say they're Christians. Where you're walking down the street and 3/4 of the people you see would claim that they're Christians. Here, I mean, probably almost everybody would claim some form of religion here. But it's not saving faith Christians. There are, I think, statistically less here than there would be in the States. And that's not due to the amount of churches we have in the States or the plethora of denominations we have in the States. I think it's just numbers. And
culturally, Germany is a post-modern culture, and also in many ways a post-Christian culture. They've had such a great Christian heritage, but I've also seen all the ugly that can come from that too. And so now there's a lot less need for it. There's a good tradition, a cultural tradition, but not like an actual need for faith and for church and church family.
Yeah. And so that's one thing that I've really noticed about the world here, is the need for intentionality. And I think it starts in the church. It starts in the local church. Similar for... actually, no, it's not similar. It's the same exact thing. One thing that I've been noticing this week, I've told Willie, told Mark, I don't know if I actually ever told you, but I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay.
In order to have a love for the lost, you must start with God's people. If you do not love God's people, you will not have a desire to add to that number. It starts with the love for God's people. It starts in the local church. It starts with intentionality in the local church. From there stems a love for the lost. And if you do not have that love for the local church, you do not have the intentionality in your local church, you're not going to be intentional outside of the local church.
That's good.
And that is one thing that I've noticed here compared to the ministry back. And maybe there are churches like that are intentional in their in their local church and also intentional in their evangelistic ministry. But that's one thing that I've seen from the church in Neumarkt. That's a thing that I saw when we were in Ingolstadt 2 years ago. And it's something that I definitely see here in Eichstätt, the intentionality in the local church.
Good. Well, I'll be seeing you in the States in August.
That's right.
And then you'll be seeing me next spring.
Yes.
When you guys come with the choir again. And then we'll see if I'll see you after that over here. So we'll be praying for you guys to see if the Lord calls you and brings you back to Germany. And there'll be a coffee waiting for you.
Yes.
And for all the listeners listening, thanks for tuning in. And I'll sign off with what I usually sign off with. And if you giggle or not will show if you've heard our podcast if you've heard the podcast enough to recognize this sign off. But stay frosty, my friends.